NBC Justice correspondent Pete Williams joins us from our Washington bureau. Pete, the last report I saw from you, it seems like the vote count or the voting is going fairly well today. There haven't been a whole lot of widespread problems, although it hasn't been perfect.
No, and it never is. It's the usual parade of problems. Polls that were late opening, the poll books didn't work or connect up to the central database. The machines weren't working right, all that sort of stuff. But it seems to be on the onesies and twosies kind of level. We've seen no widespread reports, just isolated reports of any attempts at voter intimidation. And it's not because people aren't looking for it. The cybersecurity folks say they've seen no sign of any hostile intrusion into voting systems or voter registration databases. So I think in that sense, the lesson of 2016 has been learned. A lot of these counties now have paper backups if there are machine problems. Voting systems have been undoubtedly much more secure going into this election than they have been in the past from cybersecurity. In terms of legal challenges, there were probably, I don't know, by the time we finish the count, it'll probably be near 400 lawsuits that were filed across the country in all but I think 3 or 4 states. And they were all basically on access to the voting system. Who should get a mail-in ballot? Do you have to ask for it? Is it okay if it's sent to you? Do you have to have witness signatures on it? Do you have to have an ID? Do you have to have an envelope inside the envelope that carries the ballot back? Can you drop it off? Can someone pick it up for you? All those sorts of questions. Those lawsuits now have largely been resolved. So from here on, as you say, it's going to be about fighting if it is necessary, if it's within what the lawyers call the margin of litigation, fighting every ballot where it might make a difference in the battleground states. Now, we've already seen one lawsuit filed today in Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, which is Pennsylvania's 3rd largest county. It's northeast of Philadelphia, King of Prussia, that area. It's a Republican candidate for Congress who says the county violated state law by doing what's called pre-canvassing mail ballots before the time set by state law. Under state law in Pennsylvania, the counties can't start that until 7 in the morning. She says, this candidate says the county started doing that too early, and that it also notified voters if there was a problem with their ballot and gave them a chance to come in and fix it, or as they say in the law, cure it. She says any ballot that was cured and fixed like that should be tossed out. Now, the county hasn't responded yet. There's some potential problems with this lawsuit. It isn't clear to us yet exactly what the county was doing, whether it was technically pre-canvassing. That's defined under state law as examining, opening the ballots and tabulating the ballots. Did they go that far, or did they just look at the ballot and say, hey, Joshua, you forgot to put the date on it. Come on in. We can't count your ballot until you do that. If that's what they did, that's one thing. If they actually opened the ballots, that's quite another. The other problem with this, it seems to me, is let's assume that the Republican candidate is right and the county did violate the law. If they did open the ballots and take the envelopes out, open the envelopes and take the ballots out, how do you know which are the ballots that are now supposed to not be counted? How do you uncount them? So anyway, we'll see how this works out. It's the only lawsuit filed so far.
Before we have to move on, Pete, can you put this year into some context for us in terms of these legal battles? The Supreme Court may well end up having a role in this election. 1/3 of the justices on the Supreme Court now have been appointed by the incumbent president, Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, and now Justice Amy Coney Barrett. Hundreds of lawsuits. I always worry about the whole you see what you look for syndrome, wherein it can seem like something is gigantic, but it may be just because it's not something that we always look at as closely. Is this year unusual in terms of the number of lawsuits, the primacy of the Supreme Court, and so forth?
Well, in terms of the number of lawsuits, absolutely. In terms of the primacy of the Supreme Court, that award goes to Bush v. Gore in 2000 that decided the Florida election contest. The Supreme Court hasn't yet done that, and I don't know anybody who hopes it will, including the justices on the Supreme Court. If it goes there, of course, they may or may not have to rise to the challenge. And by the way, I think a real question for Amy Coney Barrett then will be whether she recuses from that case or participates. That'll be another issue. The one Pennsylvania case is still sitting at the Supreme Court. That's the challenge to the state court's decision there that extended the deadline by 3 days for receiving mail-in ballots. The Republicans asked for a hold on that Supreme Court ruling from the state Supreme Court. The U.S. Supreme Court said no. Then they said, OK, well, we want you to hear the full up appeal and do it right now. And the Supreme Court said, no, we're not going to grant expedited review. So it's still sitting there. And the Republicans could come back again and say, OK, now will you take it? And that will be a huge test of the Supreme Court.
Thank you, Pete. That's NBC Justice Correspondent Pete Williams reporting from our Washington bureau.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.